My name is Matthijs Hoekstra. Anybody from the Netherlands? Oh, welcome. I work in OSG. OSG stands for the Operating System Group. That's the group which builds Windows all up. Xbox, desktop, mobile, HoloLens. I'm part of the developer ecosystem platform team, and specifically the ecosystem team. My job is to talk to a lot of developers, help validate the stuff we are building, but also get feedback back to the product teams, different feature teams, about, well, what are the gaps? Which parts are too hard, or are we missing, or need to change? Or also, well, don't change this stuff because it's working really well. So please, if you have questions, if you have feedback, find me after the session at the booth or through email, and send me all this feedback, especially around enterprise and line of business applications. That's the area I care most about. So let's get started on the application model for Windows 10. So this is the agenda. I have to explain the picture. When we create these presentations, people use a lot of pictures. We bing online to find funny things, and then all the people who are reviewing say, no, you can't use it. We don't have permissions to use those pictures. So we have an internal picture bank. When I search for Microsoft developer, this guy comes back. So he's happy. I don't see that many people smiling when they are developing, but and dressed that well. So it's what we have to use. So why do we need an application model, and what is the Windows application model? That's what I try to cover today. So if people are expecting a lot of C# code, I have to disappoint you. It's an overview session. I'm going to more address the overview and some details, of course, and point you to the sessions which will cover the things in a little bit more depth with all the code you need. So why do we need an application model? Why is this important? So far, we didn't really have one. You could install an application, you got an exe, you got a bunch of DLLs, some stuff in the registry, some files in program files in the past, but now program data, it's all over the place. It was not really a definition. So what is an app currently anyway? When you see one, you kind of know it, but not exactly. So how do you install an application? We didn't prescribe how to do that in the past. Where do you store your state? Some people do it in the registry, somewhere in a file system, maybe online. How long does your application run? Forever? That makes sense, but now we have this universal model where your application runs on a small IoT device like a Raspberry Pi, or on a HoloLens, or on a desktop. There are differences, and we didn't really give you a description how this works. How do you update an app? That's impossible to do today because nobody wants to reboot their machine after an update, but we give you some how to do this stuff. So we didn't really do that today. But Universal Windows Platform App, and we have to get used to all these terms because we made them up a few weeks ago. So the Universal Windows Platform App model provides answers to those questions. And I want to help you guide through a few of those answers on those questions. So what is the Universal Windows Platform Windows App model? Yes, I said it. It defines the application lifecycle, so from the start until the stop. What happens when an application starts? What happens when an application goes to the background? How do we handle background tasks, etc. But we try to do it in a scalable way. It doesn't make sense to use the lowest common denominator. If you have a powerful PC with a lot of CPU, 16 gigs of memory, it doesn't make sense to only allow what's also available on a Raspberry Pi device, right? So what we try to do is come up with a model which scales from the lower-end device, like a 512 MB phone. There's a 3 gig phone, 16 gig PC, HoloLens, etc. And by describing that, we actually describe what happens from the install, running the app, upgrading the app, but also uninstalling the app. And updating the app is pretty important as well, right? There's a lot of users who don't care about updating the app, and there's a lot of applications writing this application update task, and which runs every day to find out there's a new version, and always in the morning you find this prompt, oh, there's a new version, do you want to update? Yes, and then you have to do this administrative UAC prompt. The experience is terrible. Uninstalling is even harder. I don't think people are really capable of writing a good uninstaller, and that's our fault, right? because we didn't describe how to do that right. So for example, an application tries to copy a DLL in System32, oh, it's already one there, so I don't need to do it. When you uninstall, well, I'm not removing it because there might be another application depending on this DLL, and I didn't keep track of that stuff. So writing a really, really good uninstaller at the moment is impossible. So by creating this application model and then describe it, will help you do this stuff in a good way. So we described it for everything, including all the apps which run today on Windows. So we have the new Universal Windows apps, of course, but also the existing ones, the phone apps, the Windows 8 and 8.1 apps, but also the classic Windows apps. What are classic Windows apps? That are apps where, well, you might know them as desktop applications, desktop software, Win32, WPF, VB, Java, WinForms, all that stuff which is already out there, and you guys probably wrote a lot of that stuff, and it's going to be there for a while as well. So we have to have an application model there as well. We call this internally Project Centennial, or Project C. And what we try to do with that technology is help you move those existing classic Windows apps to the Universal Windows platform. So now what? So how can we help you move those apps into the 21st century? Look, he's really excited. And his dog too. It's a funny picture. I never seen any developer dressed so well. So I promise you, we don't need to. We don't see customers. So I said that we didn't have a really good description about an application model. We did a lot of different attempts, but we didn't get to do it right. So why now? Why is this now important? So one problem we have is we call it Windows rot. Why is it that every time you buy a machine, it's blazingly fast, and after a year, it's, I don't know, slower? Boot up is slower, takes more time to boot up. You always get this family member who calls, I didn't do anything. I got 12 Bing bars and toolbars in the browser, all those weird pop-ups all over the place. It's not really their fault, right? They want to download this little app, and you go to this website with 12 blinking download now buttons. It's hard to find out which one is right. Every application, when you install it, writes a lot of stuff in the registry, and that's okay, that's what we ask you to do, but this registry gets bigger and bigger. Every time we boot the machine, we have to load the HKCL and RU and the machine one as well. Things get bigger and bigger, so your machine slows down over time. And what I said, uninstalling that stuff is hard, if not impossible. So over time, your machine will degrade in performance. Even worse, installers could have executable code. So during install, the installers can mess up your machine really well, and some did. And I know that a lot of people try to do the right thing and try to write the right installers, but a lot of people didn't really put effort in it as well. So yeah, over time, your machine got in a worse state. And that's what we try to solve. So AppX is the model we use to install apps. MSI will still be there, but we're giving notice to MSI. AppX is where we put all the effort and all the investments in the future. It provides a better way to install and update and uninstall your app. Go a little bit detail later. But what we can do with AppX, for example, if you have a 2 gig, and we already use this for Windows apps today, right? Which come from the store, or if you want to silo them. So what happens if you have like a 2 gig application or package and you only change one assembly, the AppX model also supports just downloading the change. And in some cases we can even just do the difference from the files, so the download will be really small, which is a good and big advantage. We isolate the registry and disk access. What does it mean is that the application, we don't need to, most of the apps you don't even need to change. It might be that we have to change some of the code in your existing application, but most of this will just work. It writes to the registry and says, yeah, sure, you can do it, and it can read it as well. But what we actually do is lie a little bit. So we just let you write to your own little piece of the registry, and runtime we combine the normal registry with your application registry. And the same happens for disk access. So what it means is when you uninstall the application, we get rid of the registry part, we get rid of the file part, and everything is back as normal as it was before. So we don't leave anything behind. Because of this model, we can enforce application models as well, so memory use, for example. And we allow you to integrate with the new application model, and that is huge. So if you have an existing WPF app, and you want to integrate with Cortana, because of Project C, we can do that. The same with other new functionality. You want to add live tiles, or you want to use some new functionality which is available in the new program model, for example, with Bluetooth beacons in a good way, or background tasks. So we open up all this new goodness in our new application model, and there's a bunch of stuff we added here from your existing applications. And the good part is once you package all this stuff up in an AppX, we can deploy it through the store as well, or to an MDM environment, or to your side-loading scenario you have now today for your existing applications. For if you build mobile applications, I think we call it store apps and universal apps in the past. It's the Windows 8 model and the Windows 8.1 model. It's the same mechanism you can use once you start getting the apps in the AppX model. So what's the catch? Well, we allow full API access. You don't need to change your code. Your existing application lifecycle still there. If you want to run forever, you can do that, no problem. What we don't allow is writing drivers and NT services. One of the reasons is it's really hard to build something like this and update it without rebooting. Drivers should come through Windows Update. That's the model, that's the process which understands this, helps you update those without too much user annoyance. So we don't allow that anymore. What we also don't allow is admin elevation. What I said, if you don't want to update, you don't want to answer this UAC prompt all the time, nobody likes that. People just click yes. As long as you distribute, so like if you distribute dancingpigs.exe, people just click yes, and worse. So we don't want it. So it's all per user installed. The good thing is, by using this model, if a second user logs onto the machine and wants to use this app as well, we don't download the entire new package. We register the app for that user. It's single instance and all that stuff on disks, which is good. In-proc accessibilities. For example, shell extensions is one example, but if I write to the registry and I expect another app to use that, that's not working anymore. So browser object helpers is a good example. Plugins is another one. Plugins we want to solve, but that's not going to happen this year. But what it means is it writes to the registry and you expect another app to read that part, that doesn't work anymore. So you're able to install it, but the other app can't see it. IE cannot see this installed plugin through this model because it doesn't have that registry part, right? So we really try to do the right thing here and protect the user experience. That's the most important thing. There's another session which is recorded on Channel 9, and you can download the slides via the Ignite network. So the link is there, which just talks about how we built this. John Sheehan is one of our distinguished engineers who's building this technology. Gives you more in depth about how you can use this from your applications. Any questions on this? Does it make sense? Is it something like, yeah, cool? No? I'm not so sure what you're thinking now. Okay. So far the feedback on this technology has been good. Windows 32 or desktop or classic Windows app, I should say, easier to distribute and getting in the store as well. So how do you get your app? This is the user promise we have for Windows or from the store team, is that they should never regret installing an application. They should never think about, if I click on this application and install it, and I don't like it and I uninstall it, will my machine still be okay, or do I have to reinstall my machine? That's what happens now lots of times, right? I know you guys probably do a lot of testing of software just in a separate VM because of this risk. So where do I get my app? Store is still the default place to get the apps. Could be the public store, there's going to be a private store, and my colleague Tejas is going to talk about it on Thursday, how you as an enterprise can have your own store inside our store. You can use MDM, but what people want is a more flexible way to deploy apps as well. So what we are doing now with Windows 10 is, based on the phone model we have today, is you can have your certificate from Symantec or your own, you create a token, you sign your apps, you distribute the token and the signed apps on your device, and they can be run. How you distribute that app, you can figure it out yourself. It could be through an MDM, it could be through side loading with a tool, with PowerShell script, install a package, what you can use. Yeah, it's up to you. You can even pre-install it in images if you want. If you're an IT Grow guy, you want to preload all your devices with apps, that's what you can do for all those apps in this AppX model. There's some improvements of the AppX model as well. What I said, we do differential updates. We only download the parts you need. For example, if I build an application in 20 different languages, we know your machine only supports English and German. We will only download the English and the German parts of those packages. We increase the size, so we support now to 150 gigabytes, which I think is pretty big. And I think we cover over 99% of the apps in that way. If you think you need more, please let us know. Before you can download those apps, you obviously want to develop those apps. There was some friction here. I don't know if people did Windows 8 development. Who liked the UI where you had to developer unlock your device or get this login? So you get a developer key on your device? Nobody? You don't like that? Okay, so we got rid of it. Same on the phone, right? You have this little application, you have to tether your phone to your machine, and you have to unlock it. Not anymore, we just got the cord. What we do now, and here it is, it's just a setting on your PC. So you can, with a setting, developer unlock your machine, and even with a setting, allow sideloaded apps from other people. There's a registry setting you can set as an enterprise. You can prevent people from doing this if you want to have a policy. I don't allow people to install other applications. For both PC and phone, you don't need to tether your phone anymore. You can use Wi-Fi now to remotely deploy and debug your application as well. So I'm pretty excited about this feature. It's simple, but it's what people asked. They didn't like the friction. Of course, you can do it on any PC and any desktop. Is a question?
Yeah. So does this allow people to copy apps and not have to buy them from the store? So they can just copy app from one PC to another, do the registry update, and they can run it without having to pay for it?
So the question is, can people just copy the apps and install it somewhere else? And the question is, if I build an app and I give you the USB key with the app, like I do today with an XE or a VB6 app, whatever, and you can go to machine and install it. That's the same model. If you buy an app from the store and it's installed, or if you go to MDM, you get it on the machine, you can just get its files and deploy it somewhere else. That's not how it works. We encrypt or we lock it to the device, the application. So, and I think the reason why we did all this hard stuff was some kind of piracy kind of protection, but I don't think we really were protecting against that with this kind of friction for developers. So we tried to lower friction for developers as much as possible. So desktop is unlimited like it is today with classic Windows apps. We didn't want to make it a higher barrier for universal Windows platform apps. For the phone, it's 20 apps limit. What we also added is you're now able to install application removable storage. We already supported that for Windows Phone, but now also support this for Windows, desktop or tablets. We see more and more devices with a smaller amount of memory, but with the extensibility of an SD card. I think you can now buy 265 gig micro SD cards, which is amazing. And a user can decide to install or move apps from the machine or the device to that SD card. A developer can opt out from this, like they can today on phone. It's a manifest change. Before they change it, they upload it to the store, and then we don't allow the app to be moved to or installed on the SD card. All the data will be and is encrypted on the removable storage card. It's formatted with FAT. We could do NTFS, but then not a lot of people are doing it. So what happens if the app is installed, we encrypt it, and it's per device per user. Or mobile or per device. So, and the reason why is because some of the applications you can give the permissions that they can read SD cards, and we want to protect your app. Yeah, and you can't echo FAT FAT cards anyway, so that's why I have to do it. So part of the application uses isolated storage, and if you're familiar with it, that's like the personal storage for every user. That's also encrypted per device per user, so you can't move those files to another device and start using them. So if you want to install an app on different devices, you have to install them separately because we encrypt them per device. And our default applications are enabled to allow this. So if you as a developer think, I don't want this stuff, and there might be a reason, sometimes performance might be a reason, right? We don't know 100% upfront what the performance of an SD card is, although some of the more affordable devices have slower internal memory than SD card memory is, so it depends on what you want, but we give you the option as a developer. So there's 2 extra sessions here this week about how you can distribute your apps and how sideloading works. So John Vinsel is about app deployments for enterprises, and Tejas and Ford will talk about the Enterprise Business Store Portal, which is the store inside our store for enterprises. About app packaging and deployment is a nice session from Barclay Hill on Channel 9, which explains more in depth how this app packages stuff exactly works. And he's the guy building that stuff, so it's a really informative session. Click. There we are. I'm just looking at my notes so I don't forget anything. There's too much to cover. I'm going really fast. So part of what our application policies and application model describes is also how does multitasking work. And it's interesting to see if you talk to end users what they think multitasking is. So a lot of users ask, well, my app needs to run all the time. And if you talk to them and look into that, that's not exactly the same. What they expect is that the application will do stuff while they're not using the application. So we do a bunch of work to make it possible to run some stuff in the background as well. Another part what we introduced with the unified Windows platform model is resource management. That's now for all the devices, and what that does is it describes, for example, how much memory you can use. So if you run your application on a 512 MB device, we allow you to have 180 MB. If you go over, we kill you. But on a 16 gig machine, it makes sense to give you more resources than just a little bit. And the reason why we do it is we want to protect the end user experience. And if you think about what's happening on this phone with just 512 megabytes of memory, is well, I'm okay with playing Candy Crush, but it would be nice if I still get like my message from WhatsApp or Facebook. I still want to receive a phone call. I might be running a music program to listen to audio at the same time. And while I'm connected with Bluetooth to my Bluetooth speakers. So, and then I switch to another app, I want to use that app as well. What happens to the other app? And I don't have my memory anymore. So the resource management really helps in this regard. We also protect, for example, that not 2 apps at the same time access the camera. That's also resource management. The most important parts are caring about memory and battery life. If I'm connected all the time, like a desktop, I might not be really concerned about battery life. But when I'm on a mobile phone, it's different, right? So we describe exactly in what device, what scenario, what state we allow. How much CPU cycle does a background task get? How much memory can a background task get and a foreground application as well? So one of our colleagues has this huge matrix in different layers to keep track of all those different numbers. And we're trying to tweak and tune it to make it the best experience possible on that device running Windows 10. We also added some extended execution for foreground applications. What we normally do is an application runs in the foreground, we suspend the application, you get a few seconds to do your stuff, and then you're done. And if we need the memory, we unload your application, and you don't get a notification of that. So every time on an application, especially on a phone, right, you can only run one application in the foreground. An application goes to the background, you got a little time to save your state, but sometimes you want to do a little bit more. I got a huge Excel file, but I want to save that, and it can take some time, especially on the slower SD card. So what you can do with 2 scenarios is ask you guys, please let me do something more and give me a little bit more time to finish my work, and I promise I will be quick. And we give you a reason, so if people say, well, what's going on, they can find out what's going on in the background. If we still say, well, sorry, time's up, we give you an event and you can say, okay, I do a recovery kind of thing and the rest is just gone. And then we also can ask an application, well, that's nice, but I know I'm going to run forever, like a navigation app. So every time you switch back to email, you want your Waze or your Maps application still be navigating you and maybe give you voice commands, and that's what we ask up front. So the OS knows what it needs to do, and depending on the resource management we do on a device, maybe one or two or more applications can run at the same time forever. So it really depends on the device. 512 Mac device, probably not just one. On a big PC, we probably allow you to do more than just a single app running forever. Make sense? And then we have so-called triggers. We can run background tasks, and we can also trigger background tasks. For example, geofencing is a trigger when I'm near Home Depot. I want my application to do something, like a reminder, what Cortana uses. Well, Matthijs, you're near Home Depot, you need to pick up some stuff, like tools or nails or whatever. Bluetooth beacons is a good example as well. So when my phone gets near a Bluetooth beacon, it triggers my background task, and I can do whatever smart stuff you guys come up with. That's what the triggers do. So the multitasking helps you doing that stuff. And what you're actually talking about when multitasking, I started in the beginning, is every time a user starts your app, goes to another app, comes back to the app, what they want is that they can continue where they were. So it's not per se about multitasking, it's more about how can you resume your app. So we have a resume policy as well as part of the application model. All universal Windows platform apps, I'm getting better at it, will resume by default. That means that every time you switch back to your app, it will resume where it was left off. For phone 8.1 and Windows 8 and 8.1 desktop apps, we already did this. We can't do it for the older 7.x and 8.0 apps. And the reason is that because in the past we didn't have this model, every time you start an app, they were expecting a new instance. So when we switched this on, we found out a lot of the old apps just crash. So for those apps, they still get a new instance every time you start them. Wow. So what does this mean for your app? I think there are two different models you can do for your app. So for example, when you do a browser, you navigate away from your browser and you navigate back, it makes sense to resume to the same page you were on. If I go to a mail app and I open an email, and after 10 minutes I go back to my mail app, it might make more sense to start at the home screen instead of in the email. So there's not like one way which is best. It depends a little bit on the developer. So we see some apps, for example, Twitter or the Mailbox app as well. So if you return, like say, in less than a minute, we present you the page you were on. And then we ask you guys, please give them a way to go to your home screen pretty quickly, like a home button or a, I don't know, hamburger menu, home, whatever you think is right as a developer or designer. And after a minute, we automatically return you to the home screen. So it's up to the developer how to implement it. So you can choose. They give you the tools to do it. I have no clue why my clicker's not working anymore. Space. So since we now bring this application model on all those different devices, we have to unify the navigation model as well. So all Windows phones have this back button, right? And people seem to really like the back button. I don't have a back button on my PC, I have a mouse and a keyboard. So how do we bring these two models together? So back behaves like a back button in phone today, that's what people like. They can go back in the stack of the application. But what happens if your application is at the home screen? So let me go through it, how it would look like. So left, my mobile phone, I start my mail app. On the right is my PC with the start menu. I start my mail app. Got the first screen. And on the phone I got my back button. I can go back to my start screen. But that doesn't really make sense on a PC if it's a windowed app. So I go into the details. You see the back button on the top left corner on my desktop application, and on the mobile device I got the back button on the left corner. So I click on the left button, go back to the start screen. So on phone, if I would click back, I will go back to the previous application. On Windows, I don't have that. So what we do, we disable the back button, because we don't know what the previous app is, because you might have running several apps at the same time. So does it make sense in a windowed desktop environment? I don't know if people saw the demo of Joe Belfiore this morning. So if we switch to this continuum mode, which is the full screen mode on your machine, then we will render a back button in the bar. And I think I have a screenshot here. Then this button will show up. And then we will copy the behavior which is available on mobile as well. So we try to make it a consistent experience for the end users, without making it too much work for a developer. You just add the back button handler, and that's it. That's it. Make sense? So it's kind of the work we try to do with converging all these different device families in a single session. So my two colleagues, Michael and Jerry, will present on just the background execution and multitasking here to this week, Wednesday. You might be familiar with Jerry if you watch the Jumpstart content we publish online already, so make sure you check it out if you think it's an interesting topic. So another part is, how can we integrate applications? Applications traditionally on mobile have been isolated. There was a reason for that, because we didn't want the applications to interfere with the user experience or with other apps. It might be a security thing, but also an experience thing. So isolation is a good thing. On the other hand, people still want to do stuff. And switching between those apps to do little things, that's okay, but how can we just make things work better together? And if you look at the web, that's pretty much how the web works, right? So you're in a site, and you can click, and you're suddenly in another site, a shopping site, and they let you see products. Pretty simple model, which works pretty well today. So what we want to do, and we already did with the previous version, and we extended on it, is this URL-based activation application model. We want to keep it really, really simple. And what we found out in the past is, well, if we give you the tools and we make it really simple, people will do it. So we did COM in the past. There was some kind of interop we could do in COM, but sometimes it was really hard to do and too complex. But once we got it to you guys, people just went nuts with it. So that's what we try to do here as well. So how does building a web of apps? That's why we call it the building a web of apps. We allow apps to integrate with each other, but in a way how the web works as well. So you can do more with your app by using the functionality of other apps. URL-based, foreground to foreground is one of the scenarios, which is very familiar, similar to the web model. So you can do custom schemes like Skype, .. whack, Matthijs Hoekstra, and Skype will be started and calls me, like we do HTTP, whack, that's the web version. You can go up your own. What's new in Windows 10, because this was already possible with the current platform, right? You did a launch URI with the protocol, or you can make a link in your emails, you click it and it will start your link or a Skype or your own app, or Facebook, FB, .. whack. The good thing, this will work on any platform, right? It's just not Microsoft, this works on Android, it works on iOS as well. So it's a good way to connect to apps. What we can do now in Windows 10 is we can start an app and ask for a result. That wasn't possible in the past. So what happens, for example, like an application, it was launching, Facebook to authenticate, and then we did a trick, launched back your application, let it know the URL, and give me the token, so I can use that token to authenticate against Facebook and do all this crazy stuff. And what we can do now is we launch your app, and it's like a model dialog, so you can't alt-tab between them. For example, does the authentication, or gives you results, like doing payment with a payment app, gets back the result to the app, and it can work on the results. We can query for apps, which is nice because you can, well, I want to authenticate with Facebook, for example, but is the Facebook app installed, yes or no? If it's not installed, I might present you a web interface instead of launching the Facebook app and ask people to download it from the store and maybe get lost in between. And I can enumerate apps as well. This is useful, for example, if you want to, I have a picture, I want to launch an editor, and I can provide people with a choice to choose which one do you want, instead of just automatically launch it and see what happens. What I like about this model, and especially in the enterprise area, is that I not only can launch my app, but I can also provide the package family name. So I can specify which application exactly I want to launch when I do this FB ..web, because I can, as a developer, register my prefix as well, so that I don't know which one the user is going to choose. So it could be this fake or this, I don't know, hostile takeover kind of crappy apps to try to capture my login and password. If I don't want that, I can specify the product family name, which is unique, and you can't copy. So I can really trigger this kind of behavior. We also do this foreground to background application services. And you might be familiar with the People application on phone. We'll already use it. So this application doesn't really know about Facebook and Twitter, but it can read those feeds and collect all the data from those applications and present it in a nice way inside of the People application. We now give you that functionality as well. So you can publish part of your application and provide some kind of contract functionality other applications can consume. Might be weather data, might be rain data. Depends a little bit on the scenario. So that really helps you getting more out of your application on your device than just your own. Interesting. And we think this technology is so well done, and that's a big change we see nowadays. If you look how we build software, we try to build this technology, not just, here you are, as a developer, you can play with this stuff, but we use our own. We got better stuff for ourselves. We don't trust you guys with that stuff yet. So now how we build Windows is everything we building, we have to use ourselves as well. So how Cortana integrates with the system is using app-to-app stuff. How we do security with Microsoft Passport, that's using app-to-app. Of course, Office and Skype are using the same stuff. The interactive toast we have now is using the app-to-app technology as well. Photo editors, they can query which photo editors are there from the photo app is using it as well. So this technology and all the stuff we are building at the moment is available for third-party developers like you and me, but also for used by Microsoft itself. Which is a good thing, because that makes sure we have to make it really, really well, because the internal teams will complain if it's not working. So I don't know if the people know, but for example, the shell, which is the UI, the start menu, etc. on Windows, is built on XAML, which is our technology, and the same application model as you and I can use nowadays as well. The lock screen, the login screen, is using the same technology. So this, for example, so to show you a little bit how it works, for example, if you want to integrate with Fiber, and you can tell Cortana, hey Cortana, send a message to Matthijs about blah, blah, blah with Fiber. This is how you would do it. That's the only thing you have to do. And every time Cortana gets this message, it will know to launch your app with the right parameters. So just a bunch of XML. This really sounds like developing stuff is easy, right? So yeah, don't tell your manager. What I like about the app-to-app stuff, it opens up some kind of scenarios for an enterprise as well. And Arun, the PM who's designing this stuff, thinks about this as well. So you can imagine that you create a few applications for your organization which can work together as well. So we got an inventory app which also exposes the inventory service. Of course, you can have the product scanner and the checkout app talk to your inventory servers, but why not let do all the heavy lifting be done by the inventory app? Another scenario might be one app is responsible for all the security stuff. So I know, and there's a lot of weird stuff out there with a lot of old existing systems where you have this weird thing with authentication and stand on one leg, and everything needs to be online, and then you get this token back, and that's okay, and you probably have a library doing all that stuff, which you have to roll out for all the different applications. Let's have one app doing all that stuff, and let all the other line of business apps you're writing, this suite of apps, communicate with this single app doing all the heavy lifting for you. Through web servers, through your identity system, if you don't want to direct an IDP or something like that. Because every time we call this service, we give you the package names as well. You can whitelist which application has access to this service as well. So you can make a really secure easy maintainable solution in your enterprise by building a suite of apps using this kind of technology. Does it make sense? I see some people nodding. Yeah, I really like this part of the platform. So Darren May on Friday will do a session just about app to app and goes into the details, shows some code, some samples. So make sure you check it out if you think this is interesting. So another part, of course, is how can we engage with users? So live tiles is obviously one of the things people like on Windows. But so far, we give you a lot of templates, and with the complaints we got is there's too many templates. How to build live tiles. And they didn't really match what we want. So what happens is that developers start building background tasks which create PNG files and put it on a live tile. Background task, doing this every half an hour, or even worse, with a server, creating those PNG files, send them over to all these devices, and well, you might be so lucky that you were really successful and all the bandwidth usage went up because of the stuff. People needed more flexibility. So we're introducing adaptive tile templates, and what this does is, by defining a little bit of XML, it gives you all the flexibility you need. So this looks nice, and we have all these different sizes, right? Really tiny tile, bigger tile. We have now bigger stretch tiles on Windows as well. It was hard to do this in a really good way. We still have all the templates, and you can still use them. Please do if you like those. And now I can switch to my only demo I have. This makes a little bit more sense. I have to switch. Oh, did you know this animated stuff is already in Windows 8? Go to your account settings, picture. You can take a picture with a camera, and you can switch to video mode. You record a video, and you have like a video account picture on your start screen. How cool is that? I know you want it. So this is a tile template visualizer built by Matt Heidinger in one of our teams. This will be available later for you guys to use as well. And what it helps you is, well, figuring out how it will look like if you start entering all this XML. So I got a few simple samples. For example, the calendar. And what you can see here is, well, the small one just shows you Monday the 22nd. The tile medium has a little bit more information. The tile white and the tile large have even more information. And how we do it is just a little bit of XML. We have a text hint so you can align. We have some like the weight of the fonts. We can even wrap, for example. You see the tile text hint wrap, so we can wrap the text. We couldn't do it in the past. This gives you really a lot of flexibility to easily build different ones. And our own internal first-party apps use the same templates, right? So the calendar app, the people app, the mail app, they ask for this functionality. So they're all using this now as well. So I can have a contact tile. Oh, here's Matt. With a nice round image. And we just provide if you look here, person.jpg, and the crop is circle. So you don't have to create your own circles. That's what we do for you. So that's the kind of flexibility we already give you, which is a nice one. The finance app. This was really hard to do. So we always created PNG files. Maybe sometimes we do a little bit of XAML and render it and build the PNG file, send it to the end users. So it really gives you a lot of flexibility. The weather app is really nice as well. So we hope that this gives you, as a developer, even more capabilities to build really, really nice live tiles, to attract your users and get to your app more quickly. That was at 5. Oh, that's the wrong one. Here, 5. Yes. I did a demo. So both live tiles and the Action Center, we think, is part of to engage your users more. So we have now an Action Center on Windows as well, what we had in the past on phone. It's the same look and feel for the entire family. We inherit all the behaviors as well. What we can do, all the toast, even for your existing classic Windows apps, will end up in the Action Center. We can extend those to show the full text. We can chase and dismiss individual notifications now as well, or per group. Alarms or reminders will be there. We have actionable toast, so you get a text message and you can immediately reply in this message and send it. So without even starting your app in the foreground, you can still interact with your application. What we also did, so I know in the past, like you got a number on the tile, like mail 3, and when you dismiss the mails in your action center, the counter got to 0. That was only available for a first-party app like us. So we give you now the capabilities to do it yourself as well. So every time you dismiss a notification, we send a notification to one of your background tasks, and you can do whatever you want. So if you want to update your tile because the number is lower, or you want to remove a counter, you can undo this as well. So it gets you a little bit more capabilities to increase the user experience. Same thing what we can do, and I don't know, if I got home and I pick up my competing tablet, I know there's going to be a week of notifications, which are useless for me. It's just too much. I'm going to dismiss them all. So what we can do, we can expire notifications, for example, or we can replace notifications. So if you do like an update on stock transactions, and at the end of the day, it makes sense to keep all those and just replace them for an end of the day summary, for example, and get rid of them. So every time when I get home, pick up my machine, only the relevant notifications are left. So it's up to the developer to make a great experience, but we give you the tools to do that. And there's a session on Wednesday by Christine and Jerry just on tiles notifications and the Action Center on Wednesday. Just check it out if you think it's interesting. And lastly, we also give you access to the Universal Data Store from a developer. And I don't know, there's 2,500 new features we could talk about, but so what you can do now is you can read and write to the context in the calendar store. Create your own custom fields and create your own store and integrate it. So you get in the people view, you get a single nice view on your custom stores as well. We also give you access to the email API, so you can send emails from your device. We do have a messaging API. We are a bit hesitant to give that away to everybody because if applications start sending out SMS texts without the user knowing, that can be kind of an expensive experience, right? So we're not really comfortable with giving away this capability to everybody. So there's going to be, you have to be on this trusted list before we will give you that access. In some scenarios, this makes sense. For example, if you want to have Skype be able to send text messages, or maybe your application needs to receive some configuration to text. We have some companies asking for this because they need to write compliance software where you have to archive all the received and sent text messages. So in that regard, it might make sense. If you think, well, I really need this kind of functionality, please let me know. That might just make sense in an enterprise environment where you sideload the app or get it through your own distribution mechanism, that we might be able to open up a little bit more of the capabilities than things going to the store. And that is part of my job, is when we talk to developers, we see that I understand you want to protect the consumer from a store perspective. You don't want to have bad software in the store doing crazy stuff, which gives the user a bad experience. Enterprise most of the time say, well, I know what's best for my users, so don't get in my way and let me do whatever I want. What I try to figure out is I want to do whatever I want piece of our platform should be. So, for example, if you want to allow a little bit more functionality from a side-loaded app or an enterprise app, that most of the time makes sense. Let me know what parts or pieces are not available for you guys, and I can help you figure it out if you're going to do it or not, and help prioritize the work for our teams as well. So in summary, we try to make it really easy for your users to get all the apps. All the apps. Win32 or classic Windows apps, the new apps, through the store, side-loaded, as a developer, through MDM. We work with a lot of MDM partners to make sure they're going to support all this stuff as well. We have more flexible multitasking, so the user has the feeling that all the stuff he wants to do is happening all the time. As a developer, you get a little bit more flexibility to do stuff in the background as well, and especially we have more resources available. We converge on the navigation model, and it's unified now for all the platforms, which helps, especially when you start targeting multiple devices, makes it easier as a developer to build. The app-to-app stuff we talked about, URI-based, makes it easier to create a web of applications and help you write applications which extend functionality by using other applications. We talked a little bit about the store and search with integration with Cortana. When we did it. Ritual tiles and action center is there as well. So in the end, there's a lot of functionality for you guys to figure out, and we can't cover all these topics here in Ignite, unfortunately. Apparently you're all IT pros, so I guess that's part of it. I'm glad to hear you as developers. What are other interesting things for you guys to figure out? Just to if you go out there, go to Channel 9, go to the Microsoft Virtual Academy and figure out all the details, there's a lot of work done, for example, on VPN and do per app VPN security. There's a lot of security stuff doing Microsoft Passport. There's a session here this week around it as well. There are more developer sessions as well. It's here as well, so just give you some notion. How do you write an application or design an application which scales and is tailored to different device types, both input and output? How does it work with a mouse? How does it work with touch, with a pen? We give you a lot of tools to build nice applications. We did a lot of work around security and certificates. We got a lot of questions out like, I want to build my really own security and use my certificates in the way I want. We give all the APIs to you as well. But even like Bluetooth beacon support makes sense. I don't know, I was just talking to a developer from an airline who want to, the pilots have a device where all the paperwork is on instead of this flight case, but they want to know if the pilot's in the right plane. Like, oh, apparently it sometimes happens that the pilot is not in the right plane. But well, the cockpits all look alike, right? So they want to solve that problem. I didn't even know that was a problem. So beacons could be used in an enterprise scenario as well, obviously. The work we did with Wi-Fi Direct and dynamic discovery of device, if you want to make peer-to-peer kind of solutions, we built a bunch of APIs for you here as well, in a way so you can make cross-device applications workable as well. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff we try to give you as a developer. There's also a lot of stuff to discover. This is the end of my presentation. I will be around for some of the questions. I will be at the Windows booth as much as possible for other questions. So if you have things you liked or you don't like, but tell us what you like as well so we don't change it anymore. But if there's things you don't like or think we are missing, please let me know. Thanks for your time and for coming here, and hope to see you around.